Thank you all for joining us today for this Zoom meeting called Mother2Mother online support group. When I first heard about this, I was pretty excited about it because I can think of countless families that have a hard time just going to a small group. I think on a church level, to find a small group that has either childcare that can include our kids with special needs, or to find childcare or babysitters that can be with our children with special needs is always a challenge. And so, a virtual seems like a much easier way to go as far as tapping into a group of people who can understand um, how hard it is to connect, and understand that when we talk about what's going on in our lives, that we don't have to put a big background story to it. We kind of understand immediately. And so my good friend, Patricia Parker, I've known for years, pretty much connected me with Miss Selena Miller, and the rest is history. So welcome to this Zoom meeting, Mother2Mother online support group. My name is Deb Peterman. I work for the Center for Disability Empowerment. We are one of 12 independent living centers in Ohio. I am the transition coordinator and community connector. We are, as I said, an independent living center. We are non-residential. The Center for the Center for Disability Empowerment was founded to address the need in Central Ohio for cross-disability organization dedicated to supporting the independence of people with disabilities and to their full participation in the community. CDE's mission is to provide supports and resources for people with disabilities in order for them to be participants and contributors in their communities as they live, learn, worship, and work and play alongside with people who do not have disabilities. For this mission to be fully realized, communities themselves must be educated and transformed to fully embrace those with disabilities rather than designating special programs and places that keep them segregated and marginalized. Our network will provide information, education, and training and community connections for families and individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities across the lifespan. We serve all people of all ages and all disabilities. We have 5 core services that are federally mandated. Information and resources support, education and training related to independent living, advocacy and special education, benefits, health and wellness, employment, and more. Community connections to provide opportunities to access, participation, and collaboration connections to provide opportunities for access to the community outside the scope of traditional, segregated, and special programs. We have reduced self-advocacy and systems advocacy. We have transition program for youth, and I do the transition for people with disabilities to find housing outside of the nursing home with the correct amount of community support. We do have an ADA specialist on staff, and our desire is to help people to live independently so that they would have a good life. We are currently working with the Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities with the Ohio Family Network grant. So this outreach is part of that grant, and our goal is to help people connect with people locally And that's why this program is very important. So without further ado, I do want to introduce you to Selena Miller, Miss Miller. And Miss Miller is, many of you know her already, because I can tell you guys already are fond of her. But Miss Miller is a proud mother of 2 sons and is a mother and a wife. She is the founder of Mother2Mother, which runs support groups for mothers of special needs children. She previously worked at the Word Church in the administrative capacity and as a parent rep for Warrensville Heights Schools. She currently serves as a diversity, equity, and inclusion coordinator for the Milestones Autism Resources. I know she's going to be touching more on that. Such an important role in our community, especially serving people, the Black and Brown community. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the baton on to Selena as she talks about her journey towards Mother2Mother. Thank you so much, Selena, for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Deb. Thank you for
Mhm.
having me. And
Yes.
of course, yes, a lot of the faces that I see are familiar. We hang out quite often. But thank you so much for having me and allowing me to be able to share my story. But it started 15 years ago, and I'll give you the short version, when I gave birth to a little boy named Elijah. And I noticed at around close to 18 months, Elijah was not developing like his brother. So I kind of compared their milestones. From there, it was talking to my doctor and getting services for him. As soon as he turned 18 months, back then they were just giving them developmentally delayed. He didn't get an autism diagnosis, not until he got till around maybe 9, 10 years old, somewhere in that area. And I had to fight for that because of the fact that they would say, oh, well, he speaks to people, or, he can be social. But on the checklist, he kind of had everything else that fit the category of autism. So of course I had to continue to keep fighting to get that. Our journey was a lonely journey, and I just thought that I was just being a mom who was just out there advocating for a child. I didn't think about supports or, having to come and, get into a group, or that there were people out there that I could reach out to. I just did what I always done for my kids, and that's just being a mom and making sure that he had the services he needed. It wasn't until many years later when I started to become in ministry at the Word Church. I've been a member there for almost 11 years. And so I have been in ministry in the life support department, which is small groups. And people kept saying, you should start a support group. You should start a support group for, parents with children with special needs. I've always had this thing where I was like, oh no, not me. Maybe I can help somebody do it, or I didn't think that I could do it, or sometimes it was even thinking, am I smart enough to do it? Do I have enough knowledge to do it? Do I have So I always passed it off. I passed it off for like 3 or 4 years. They had tried 4 years. I did. It was one day I was talking to one of the elders at the church who was over the small groups department. And I was telling her about a milestone for Elijah. This was 3 years ago, that we went to the dentist, and for the first time, like, he sat in the chair and we didn't have to hold him down. And, we used to have to put Elijah to sleep at the dentist because he never would like for anyone to touch his face. So now he's 12 years old and he's sitting there like a big boy. And I was so excited to share that story. About a half hour later, she called me and she said, it's time. And I was like, well, what do you mean it's time? She's like, it's time for you to start that group. It's time for you to share your story. It's time for you to minister to other moms and other parents. I didn't fight her this time. So I'm taking that it must have been the right time. And so we sat on the phone matter of fact, she's upstairs. I'm in my office. She's upstairs in her office, and we're on the phone versus in each other's office. And she's like, so what do you want to call it? And one of my girlfriends was sitting next to me and she was like, Mother2Mother. And I was like, wow, that was it. I said, okay, so that's what it'll be. Literally, we did the marketing for it within the church. Um, we had it announced. It was added to the small groups registration. And within a month, we had our first support group. I think I remember calling Pat because I had met Pat months ago. And I told her, I said, well, guess what? I'm starting this support group. And she was there the first day that I started, and she's been with me ever since. But she was at the meeting. I thought that starting this organization was for other people, to help them, to support them, to give them resources. And I realized in these last few months that this organization has done more for me than I think that I've done for them. And we just want to create an atmosphere for moms to have a platform to be able to speak about, what they go through on a day-to-day basis. We try to share resources. We try to do the best we can to hear from families and just to try and stay abreast of what families need, and we kind of change as the seasons change so that we make sure that we try to offer what we can to families. This organization has just been a true blessing to me, to my son. um, we've had many support group meetings. So it started at the Word Church. We were going every 2 weeks. From there, we expanded to the West Side, which Ebony is on this call also. She's our facilitator for the West Side location. So we started the West Side. And then we also had Warrensville Heights Library. So we were doing 3 physical support group meetings, running, simultaneously, just different times of the month. We also we're a community. Most people may think, that we're a clique or a family, and I consider ourselves just a community of moms that just work together and help each other along the way. All of our children are different ages, so we have little kids to teenagers to adults, and it's wonderful because we kind of give each other advice based on the stages that we're in. So if you have a mom who has a little kid, I'm able to kind of minister to them about what they may expect as a teenager. And if you have a teenage child, I kind of look to Pat and those who have adult children for advice and things like that. So we kind of just help each other along the way. From there, we also do a lot of trainings. So we've had IEP trainings. We've done waiver support, family support and waiver services through the county board. We've had a number of field trips. We've been to Florida together as a group. So we're just, a little community that, God just entrusted me with this group, and the families also entrusted me, or should I say trust me, to follow me, um, which I appreciate so much and love them so much. Um, as I said before, I mean, my journey is kind of simple. I just wanted to do something for other moms. I just wanted to help other people because I didn't think that I was struggling. I didn't know that I should reach out. But I started to meet other mothers who were struggling. And I'm like, just giving advice or just giving, not so much, just sharing my story with Elijah. And I realized that it helped other people. And that's pretty much what I said, okay, I want to help other people do this. And it just was the right time. And so we've been in this for 3 years, and we have done a lot as a group. And we just pray that we continue to grow and that we continue to touch families and help people.
We have a question, Selena.
Uh-huh.
Um, how long were your physical location support groups? Were they during the day? What are the best time slots? And how did you get the word out?
We were at physical locations up until recently, really since COVID-19, a little before COVID-19. We were at the Word Church for at least, I would say, a little over 2 years. And we were at the library for maybe about a year or so. The Word Church was during the day. It was on a Sunday. It was in the morning in between services. And what I'm still learning to this day is what are the best time slots for families. I still have not mastered that physically. Um, we I tried to gauge like what days more families were able to come based on their availability or their work or however. What I did notice is that our Warrensville library location, which was at 6 p.m. on a Monday, would have a nice turnout. The one we had on the west side, um, that also would get a good turnout. Our Word Church location kind of started to not get the greatest turnout during service times, and then a lot of changes at the church happened. So we ended up kind of letting that one go and just do the two. The way that we get the word out is social media, word of mouth, text messages, group me, um, just any of the social media outlets. Now that I've gotten or growing in different relationships like Milestones, post us on their website so you can find our information on Milestones. Connecting for Kids also has our information on their websites. So the more that we grow and build relationships, organizations start to add us. Um, and that's another way that we get the word out about the meetings, but mainly through social media and email blasts. I see you said how responsive were churches to welcome your families when were accessible. So most of the families that attended the support group at the Word Church were already members of the Word Church. We didn't get many outsiders from other churches. And to be honest, it's still a work in progress. The Word Church, as even though it is a large church, they are still not equipped in a sense to handle our families. So it was still a work in progress. They were very accepting and they want to learn more. That's the thing. They want to know more. We need the help. And COVID-19 kind of stopped us right in the middle of our tracks as they were just reaching out to us to say, how can we be more special needs friendly or, help the families. But then COVID-19 hit and that kind of just stopped everything in its tracks. But like I said, we made it as accessible as we could. Pastor would announce it from the pulpit that we had this organization and meeting. We've also had resource fairs at the church to also get the word out. So we would use our field too and have resources available and families could come to know that we were there at the church. Do I think that they would be open to training? Yeah, I think that they would. I think that now, probably after we come out of COVID-19 and everybody kind of gets their bearings back as far as how church is going to run during this, I think that they would be open to it. We have discussed it before. When you say outside agencies, do you mean like a Milestones or like other special needs? Yeah, I think that they have been. I know that a few of them have wanted to work with us. We have worked with Connecting for Kids, and as you can see, I do work with Milestones, not just as an employee, but they sometimes will co-work on something together. But I think that people have been very supportive of the group. I think we are one of, and I don't want to say the only because I don't know if we're the only, but I think one of the African American women's support group for special needs families that are out there. And so it's new. And so we have gotten a lot of good feedback because of it, because there's not many of us if any, that are out there. So people have been pretty helpful. Let's talk about that. Okay, yeah. I mean, like I said, I don't know if we're the only ones, and we're not the only ones because we have now a young lady named Crystal who has No Limits to Autism. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her. She has a support group that she now does. There's also another parent named Janice Gunn who has the MZ Project, which is named after her son. So she hosts support groups. So there's a lot of up and coming groups that are coming out there that are predominantly African American moms that are starting them. I know that we are expanding to want to have groups for now our Hispanic families, and we are currently looking for a Spanish speaking mom who would be interested in running one of our meetings so that we can service that community as well. What I learned last night was they want to be a part of support groups, but they also want to be a part of support groups where they speak their language. And so we want, again, we like to hear what the community needs. And if there's something that we can do to help with that, that's part of our mission. And so I talked with Ebony and we said, let's put it out there and see if we can find a Spanish speaking mom that would be willing to host a group. Okay, that'd be great, Deb. That would be, yeah, that definitely would be wonderful. We're definitely looking for a mom to do that. And I'm excited about that because I would love to, like I said, I love to see moms join the group, but I just love to see all of us grow together and learn together. And like I said, just share together. That's also part of what I'm going to be teaching about in the Milestones Conference. So some of our Q&A and questions that we talk about are these disparities in the African American community. One, of course, has to do with diagnosis and just getting a proper diagnosis um, at the proper age. Of course, for us, we're not getting them as soon as our white counterparts for many reasons. Some of it has to do with the way that the test itself has been designed. It was designed in the beginning where they were just testing Caucasian little boys, and they weren't testing many African American boys with this test. And therefore, again, we're hoping that this will all change now that we're learning the numbers are growing and that it's more. Some other things we're learning is with the African American population is culture, and sometimes what we've been taught or what we're learning about special needs back from when it was my mom's day, where she'll say, well, no, it's nothing wrong with him, he's perfectly fine, you know, he's just a little boy. Or I mean, there's a lot that can go into um, that. But I know for me, it took a while with Elijah to get that diagnosis. And even though he was checking off everything on the list, for some reason they would just say, oh, well, because he talks sometimes. Well, no, it's not that he talks he talks sometimes. He talks when he feels like it, if he's not in the middle of a meltdown. So it was kind of hard. And so I used to say, well, if it was a Caucasian mom in here trying to get her child this diagnosis, would you really be giving her a hard time with getting it? And so in some instances, people would probably say no. Also, a lot of with our disparities have to do with healthcare. A lot of our parents that may or may not have health care are not able to go in and get these diagnoses and therapies. And then of course, resources. There are no, a lot of our African American communities, there's no resources. So a lot of the programs that a Connecting for Kids or that a Milestones may offer is not in East Cleveland, may not be, you know, in the inner city of Cleveland. So, I mean, there's a lot that goes into that, just not having the proper supports and resources it's almost a triple jeopardy being a boy, Black, and having a disability. You're absolutely right. Hey, Jamie.
I know I'm not supposed to talk because I'm admin, but I have a question. I want to pick your brain about something. I work with students with disabilities, and um, I'm noticing as I'm going into the schools, and I know culturally, because I come from a Hispanic background, people with disabilities are hidden. You don't talk about it.
Mhm.
So I'm noticing a lot of similarities with African American communities, that parents are denying that their kids even have a disability. And it's disheartening because I feel like that hinders, one, that hinders disability pride, and two, that hinders access to tools that are going to help them succeed.
Mhm.
Oh, do you have any advice how to navigate that while being cognizant of the cultural aspects that are there?
Yeah, I know that that's difficult. I worked in the school district as well, and a lot of that denial for some parents comes from a fear of feeling as though you failed. And so I may not have dealt with it, but I've talked to parents who are in denial, but they're in denial because they're afraid that they may have failed their child who has this disability, and so instead they just deny it. Um, the best advice that I can give is just to be supportive. A lot of the times, what I notice in the school district is that a lot of our African American parents, when they're dealing with teachers, they feel like they're here and the teacher is here and there's already something there already. So it's kind of like bridging a gap with each other, building a relationship with the parent, because a lot of the times what I saw with the parents is it's always the teacher coming at them versus, hey, building a relationship, talking about some of the positive things, and then kind of weeding in some things that you notice. Some parents are already on the defensive, they're already in denial, and it is difficult. I've saw it firsthand in the classroom. So I could just suggest it, just if you just continue to be patient and just find a way to maybe just build a relationship with the parent that's not always on a negative note, like you're always contacting them because something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned that sometimes just contacting them when the child does something right kind of pulls that. For some parents, they told me to bring that wall down, where
Yeah.
then it kind of give you a way to get in there and kind of talk to them more about their child. It's not like that for all, but if you happen to run into that, just maybe that might help. I've noticed that it helped when I was working with parents. I would
Mhm.
call them to talk to their child about something positive before, because they would just answer the phone automatically, like, I'm calling to tell you something's wrong with your child,
Yeah.
or bringing you in saying, well, something's wrong. And they're immediately on the defensive and you won't be able to get anything in edgewise.
That makes sense. Thanks for the advice.
No
Okay,
problem.
now I'll go back to my little hole.
You're fine. I hope that works for you.
It does. Thank you.
Uh-huh. How can we create a better toolkit for our families as they go into an IEP? Like what and who to bring in with them. So something I learned yesterday from my Hispanic parents panel, and I don't know if schools will do this, but when you're dealing with different backgrounds, such as Hispanic or African American, um, toolkits such as having them, of course, make sure that the IEP is printed out. It should be not back and forth, front and back pages. It should be all on one page. It's a lot of paper to print, but make them print it. Just making sure that they're following the guidelines. And I think for us, um, teaching our families that it's okay that if you feel intimidated to bring someone with you, bring an advocate, whether it could be another special needs mom. We tend to do that in Mother2Mother. I'll call Pat in a minute. Any of us will call Pat and ask for her assistance, maybe contacting the Ohio Coalition and asking for an advocate from their organization to come, or you can even call Milestones. We have our trained social workers that will attend your IEP meeting with you. So I'm thinking that a toolkit that you can make is, hey, these are your rights. I think first off, parents need to know what their rights are. So showing them what their rights are, encouraging them that it's okay to bring someone with you, that it's okay to ask for, yeah, it's okay to, I mean, that you feel like you're by yourself in this room of these educated people and it's intimidating. Asking for things to be printed out for you properly. What I learned from our Hispanic moms is now they're asking their teachers to have it printed in Spanish. So have it translated so that the family can understand, not just have a Spanish speaker in the room to interpret it, but they want to leave with the proper paperwork. Um, those are, some of my suggestions. Make sure that you bring your IEP with you. Make sure that you review it ahead of time. Go over it. If there's things you want to change, make sure that you make changes and things at home. If there's something you don't understand, reach out to, again, an advocate or a family member or a member in your group. Those are a few things I can think of. She said, I had a friend say she brought a tall man in a suit who didn't say anything the whole meeting. Kind of freaked the team a little. What happens is when you bring someone into the meeting, it changes the whole dynamic, because now it's not, oh, it's us against the parent. It's like, ooh, who is this person? I think it just changed the whole dynamic of the meeting when you bring someone with you. Because we know sometimes, and again, I worked in the school district for a minute, some of those meetings are they just want to get in, go over the paperwork, done with it to get you out of there. And they don't want to go, some of them don't want to go through things properly or explain things properly. But like I said, you have rights, and the first thing is learning what your rights are and understanding them and reaching out to people who can help you if you don't understand them.
On your Mother2Mother, you offer every Tuesday something very special. Can you talk about that?
So every Tuesday, we do have our virtual support group. It is a Zoom meeting. And typically, I try to have like a special guest come on and speak. So we've had the Cleveland Metro Parks this past Tuesday to talk to us about safety and things that we can do with our kids at the Cleveland Metro Parks. We've had Nikki Montgomery come on to talk about what we can do for summer as far as summer camp. So we just try to bring people on to give information. And sometimes we just meet just to, hey, how was your week? I call it a venting session. Let's talk about how you're feeling. Let's talk about what's going on in your week. Is there anything that you need? Are there any services that you need? Is there anything that we can help you with? Recently, myself and Patricia Parker did where we provided families with weighted blankets. So families put out a need, and we were able to get funding together and work together and get 27 families in Cuyahoga County weighted blankets. This time we're coming up with another initiative if families need household products, or if they need personal hygiene products, and we're going to put together a little kit and provide families with these items. We're also working on this summer, again, with all our kids being home, we want to get a consensus of what would be useful for your child for the summer. So Nikki gave some excellent idea on camp ideas. What are some of the things you need for those camp ideas? So would you like a trampoline for your child to have? Would you like, it's a specific swing that I know Patricia's son Matthew has. Those type of things. And we want to help to provide those for as many families as we can. So we're working on some things to try to, again, listen to the community and help to provide some items. If there's anybody, I want to make sure I touch on this before we go, because I know Deb mentioned this, for people who may be interested in starting their own support group. Like I said, when I started it, or when I tried to fight against it, I thought that I had to be this specific type of person, that I had to be just educated, PhD almost type person to start one. But really, you just have to have a heart for what it is that you love. And so I have a heart for serving people, and I have a heart for the special needs community. So if you have a heart to want to help others, if you, that's what you need to start with. From there, it was coming up with a date. It was coming up with guidelines, specific guidelines like what time are you going to start? The location. You know, you want to be mindful of people's time and start on time. Confidentiality is big. It has to be confidential. What it is that everyone shares in the group is not to leave the group. You want to respect what each other says in the group and not judge. You leave judgment at the door. It's not a place to judge each other. We're here to uplift each other. Because you may hear some things that, you know, you may not agree with. One thing I try to say, and I have it in our written guidelines, is that you really don't want to give advice per se. You just want to share what you may have done that worked for you. Because some people are not there for your advice. So for instance, I may say, well, this worked for Elijah. This particular situation is what worked for him. So something I learned is a suggestion versus, well, what you should do is try, or you should go and do this, because some people can get offended by it. So just use your own situation to kind of explain how it may have worked for you. Of course, you want to find a location, a place that is easy for people to get to, easy for them to find. And you want to kind of gauge from your group a good time and day that may work for them. Being special needs parents, I know it's hard when it comes to time. We don't have a lot of it. And so gauging from your families, like what's the best time and day that may work for you, and try to stick to that as best as you can. Also allowing each person in your group to have time to talk. We all like to talk. I like to talk. We all like to share, especially when you're in a place that you feel comfortable and you want to vent and you want to get everything out. You have to find a way to transition and allow people to talk. So I remember when I first started, some of them may remember, I used to have red, green, and yellow cards. And so I would mainly use the yellow, like, okay, we're coming up on a certain amount of time, or the red is time to stop and allow the next person. But now we kind of just, okay, thank you for sharing. And you know, you just want to do it smoothly and allow each person to have their opportunity to talk. It's always good to have a sign-in sheet. You want to have a sign-in sheet. You want to capture information, their name, their email address. Some people may be okay with giving you phone number and address. You could put it on there. I even sometimes ask your child's name and diagnosis. And I do have a spreadsheet with everyone's contact information, because that's how you want to build an email blast or email list. I do have our Facebook pages, Instagram pages, in which we share a lot of information on. So it's always good if you have a support group to have a social media page to attach to it, so that people can go and see what resources you may be posting. That'll be a good place to put all your support group, as far as the dates, times, locations. If you're doing a special event or anything like that, that's a good place to have all of that and refer people to. You also, for your support group, want to have an email address so that families can email you, and able to keep in contact with you. Those are the things that I would say is good to start with. Have your room set up. You always want to have it set up and ready to go before your people get there. You want to be able to greet them as they're coming in and make them feel welcome. You never want to really be setting up as they're getting there. You want everything to be put into place when they come in. You can have resources available for them if you want to have snacks, juice, water, you know, whatever you want to have available for them. Give them time to get those things together before you start your meeting. That will be good. So those are just a few things as far as starting one. From there, as you get into it, you really will find out what works, what doesn't work, what you may add. Like I always have ideas. So we switch up on things a lot because the more that the Holy Spirit sends me something as far as we should be doing this, or God says we need to shift in this way, we try to do that. I see Deb's putting all our information in the chat as far as what we have. Nikki said the M2M raffles are fun too. Yes, we also do free lunch Friday. So for parents or caregivers that are essential workers, we pick names. We have people put their Cash App name in the comments after I leave the video, and then we will pull a name and I will Cash App them lunch for the day. And then we have at our meetings, we have raffles sometimes, or we love to give away gifts. So we do. Thank you for reminding me of that, Nikki. We give gifts. We have things, little raffles, little things like that, just to keep it interesting, keep it fun. They seem to love it. We may have a potluck every once in a while, maybe for a holiday or for one of our loved ones' birthdays, where we'll get together and eat, things like that.
I have a question for you, Selena. You know, when you're an advocate, it's a tough journey. And sometimes you feel like you're alone, and it looks like you have a great support group to help you along in this journey. And I know a couple of them are advocates themselves.
Mm-hmm.
How important is that to have support as you decide to go forward with doing something like this?
Man, it means everything. It really does, to have the moms that believe in me and believe in the vision. Helps to keep me, it helps keep me moving. It keeps me uplifted. I love that I can go to them with ideas and they'll let me know whether they don't think it's a good idea, or whether it's a great idea. It's always good to have people in your corner who support what it is that you do. And God has definitely blessed me with a bunch of women who really believe in the Mother2Mother brand and the ministry and what it is that we're doing. It makes all the difference in the world, all the difference in the world. Another thing, and Nikki, thank you for bringing that up too. With your support group, you have to make a decision whether you're going to offer childcare, whether you would want or allow children to come to the meeting. I know there are times where we do have our kids at the meeting, but you have to make a decision on whether you want this to strictly be for the moms. And if so, are you able to offer childcare for the kids? That is another piece that you want to think about when having a support group, because some families don't have a sitter. They may not have a husband or someone at home who could keep their loved one. And so you also want to see how you want to make your group as far as having children or adults there also.
I just want to say thank you. This was really, really incredible. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you. You know, anybody else who's looking to start a support group, you also want to find out whether you want to do online or personal. I know with COVID-19, that's kind of, you know, the personal part you may not be able to do. But what we're learning at Mother2Mother is virtual is starting to be the way to go. It helps also with families who have a loved one that they don't have, again, someone to care for them while they leave the house. So you also want to think about how you want to put it together, whether virtual or not. Zoom seems to work the best. I think it's worked great for our group. You also, like, we send information to the school districts. So if you are in touch with school districts, you could send them your information to refer families and let them know that you have meetings as well.
Hi there.
Hi.
This is my first meeting, and I met you officially, I think, as well as Patricia last year at the Milestone Conference.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to doing it this year as well. But I
Awesome.
just wanted to say thank you. I've been kind of catching up with Mother2Mother. I just recently found out about it, and actually I was gonna have. I think you were gonna come to our school to talk.
Yes.
Yes, I'm that one. And then
Okay.
yes, that's why I said let me go ahead and
Yes.
something. So I hate that
Yes.
that didn't happen, but
Yeah.
I know moving forward, I am looking forward to that opportunity because I know
Yeah.
my families really need that direction, just to have somebody to talk with, as well as like I tell them, we're in this together because
Absolutely.
by me having a son on the spectrum, we got to figure this and grow together.
Yeah.
So I just want to
Absolutely.
thank you for the
Ah, it's so great to put a face with a name.
opportunity.
But
Yeah.
yeah, definitely Nathan and I, we're still open whenever we can even figure out if you want to do something online. If you
Okay.
don't get a chance to, we're trying to be as flexible as possible. So if doing a virtual meeting once school starts back up is easy for you, we can set
Okay.
something up like that. You just
Yeah.
let me know.
Sure thing. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And
Oh, nice to meet you.
thank you. And I met Ebony, like our kids go to the same school. I haven't formally met her and hugged her yet,
Yeah.
but I keep up with what's going on through her.
Oh, cool.
Yes, I look forward to working with all of you all.
Absolutely. And I know we're waiting for Deb to come back on, but
She's back,
also,
I
is
see.
she back? I know
Uh-huh.
Deb wanted me to give information about the Milestones Conference. For those of you who may not be registered, I do work for Milestones as the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Coordinator. And I'm also facilitating two of our Straight from the Source conference topics. One is African American Parents Panel, and the other is the Hispanic Parents Panel. So what I do is I'll be asking questions, and we just want our parents or these parents to express their journey, what they've experienced getting a diagnosis, what they've experienced in the community, and discuss their culture. So I will be facilitating those two straight from the sources is what we call them, but they're parents panels. The conference is June 11th through the 16th. It's all virtual. You can register online. Deb also wanted me to give you guys, if you wanted pricing. So for family members, for one day is $50, 2 days is $100, and if you want all access for all 5 or 6 days, it's $150. Now, we have scholarships available. So if those prices are something that you're not able to do right now, you can apply for a scholarship. And if you are accepted, they will cover the cost, or at least most. I think one lady says she's paying like $1. So it'll cover most, if not all, of your cost if you need that. If you're a professional, the prices are 2 days for $200 and all access for $290, and you get CEUs are included in that. So you'll be able to get CEUs for that. And if you're an individual who is on the autism spectrum, it's $50 for all access. So you can go to milestones.org to check out the agenda, everything that we're going to have going on, and to register.
I just want to make sure everybody knows we are recording this Zoom meeting, and so it will be up on our Center for Disability Empowerment YouTube page, hopefully within the week. So you all will have access to this information, and then I'll be sure to download the chat so that Deb can send that to you all once she sends out the evaluation form and all that good stuff.
Can I ask a question? And I want to share one thing that worked. So my daughter has a TBI. She's 15. All her friends are people of color on the spectrum. They go to school with her. And I honestly didn't even know they were people of color until we had to talk about it, all that was going on in our city. I never asked her what race they were, and it never came up. And as we've been learning and getting quite the education this week, she wanted to join the protests. And so we figured out what would work for us is if she rode around in the van with her siblings, carried some signs, from the window for as long as she could. So she has some sensory issues. It wasn't a long time, but it was a very meaningful way for our whole family to be able to participate. But I was wondering if anybody else had any other experiences or ideas on how to get involved with their kiddos.
As far as, are you meaning just as far as the protest type situation, or just anything in general?
I mean, the physical protest, if there's any, ideas with that, but also just other things that we could be doing, because we do tend to be more limited in terms of being on foot, being on the front lines of the protest.
Anybody else that can chime in? I'm trying to find out and learn those things as well. Of course, if you want to, there's a lot of organizations if you guys want to donate to. There's a lot of things, organizations that are doing things maybe locally in your city, maybe not so much protesting, but maybe meetings that you can attend even virtually. Anybody else may have any ideas, please share. Books by more diverse authors. Yep, Nikki says in the chat. So maybe getting some books or even YouTubing some things on diverse speakers such as Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, and maybe learning a little more about the movements, and maybe learning more about Black Lives Matter and what's going on. So maybe just, since like you said, you guys are limited with going anywhere, these are some things that you guys could do together and learn. Like Nikki just said, TED Talks are good. So looking up, you can kind of go on TED Talks and listen to a lot of people that may talk about diversity and different movements and things like that. So those might be some helpful ideas. Just education.
I was just gonna say, I do have a book list from children's books all the way up to adults and young adults that I can share with the group. Perhaps, is it possible to link it to the Mother2Mother? There's a Facebook page, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yep. Yeah, I can share that there.
Yeah.
I know my youngest son is he's been having a little bit of difficulty with trying to express his feelings, around, and because he does have some language issues. He's very verbal, but the one thing that he did say, because we're allowing him that platform to just talk, he just said he's just angry. He's angry, and he even in his young body, he understands that what was done was wrong. So from that, we just decide to have more discussions with him. And then one thing that we thought about too is just maybe doing some artwork, see what comes out of the discussion, just to allow him that space to express himself, on the paper. And he doesn't like to write, but I just, whatever comes of it, I know that it will be from the heart. So that's something that I could suggest maybe.
That's good. So Sarah, even sitting down with her and talking to her about how she feels,
yes,
about what's going on, maybe even encouraging her with the feelings that she may have if she can journal, or like Joanna said, whether it's just painting or creating something to express how she may be feeling about what's going on. I think that's a really big thing, is just sitting down with her and talking to her, and you guys just educating and just seeing where she is and how she feels about everything.
And also talking to her friends too, maybe if they decided to do a Zoom chat and you know, just to kind of see what would she like to do or what would they like to do to make a difference, you know. Yeah.
That's good.
I love that idea. That is awesome. Thank you. All great.
I come from the Hispanic community. My hometown is in El Paso, Texas, so 80% Hispanic. So Columbus is a huge cultural difference to me. So I'm trying to be as cognizant as I can about learning about different cultures. Kind of just going off of just people that I already follow on social media. I know a lot of people that I follow currently on social media are sharing what their followers are sending to them for links and tips and information and education about the Black Lives Matter movement and African American culture and all that good stuff. So I would really encourage you all to look to social media. I mean, it's doing, and that's how I'm learning right now.
Yeah, social media is a great outlet to find information. Definitely.
Can I mention something?
Of course.
Last night, well, actually Tuesday night at 10 o'clock, I have a group called Late Night Parents, and it's run by Lady Extreme Carter. She's a local person here, and she is African American, and she brought up a really, really good topic with all that's going on. She said that, you know, a big concern, her son is 14, he's a tall boy, and you know, a lot of our well, the men that I know, young men who are 14, 18, especially my Sunday school class, they're tall, big African American boys, and they have when they go into sensory overload, they tend to be throw their weight, and you know, when they're afraid or overwhelmed. And her big concern was for her son is he doesn't like to wear a mask, and so when they go in public, you know, he may, you know, have a tantrum, or he may get upset. And the big concern, and this is not a new topic, it is, what if he was by himself and he has limited speech, and this officer addresses him, and what if he was a runner and he runs away, or if he was a deaf person and didn't hear the police officer. There's still that concern for our folks with disabilities who don't adhere to person of authority. So
Mhm.
on it was 2 days, it was that day I listened to the Columbus Urban League did a wonderful press conference, and they said that they were addressing the police department with 60 topics to address. And I mentioned at our, you know, our 10 o'clock meeting is, I wonder if one of those topics is, how are we educating you know, law enforcement, people with invisible disabilities who, you know, may be caught in such a situation. Are those people learning how to be with people with invisible disability? I think now that everything's so hot right now, we need to be really part of that conversation. I mean, so I wanted just to bring that up there in topic. I know that the Center for Disability Empowerment has been working with Ohio, Rights Ohio, on the topic. We have been, and we want to revisit that. I know my executive director was going to revisit that as well. But something that I think we need to add in the conversation on a local level, what about that conversation, and be proactive about it, especially for our community of people.
So at Milestones, we actually started training police officers, first responders on how to interact with individuals with intellectual disabilities. We trained the Warrensville Heights Police Department as well as Garfield Heights Police Department. We've also trained the students. So it has to be a back and forth. So we began training right before COVID. We did Warrensville High School Special Education Department and training them how they should interact, or as training them on the Be Safe. It's called Be Safe is the name of the curriculum that we use. And we got certified in it and we taught it to the students. And it shows them practical ways that they can interact positively with all law enforcement. And we all, like I said, we also train the police. Right before we left, we were on our way to training others, but now we're trying to figure out if we can do this now virtually. But I do agree with you 110% that now more than ever, we need to be pushing this. And so I did mention it to the staff a couple of days ago. I know we're trying to get through this whole conference, but this is something that we need to revisit. But I also want to get parents involved, because I think it's very important that parents understand what they can do in their community. For instance, even simple things like going to your local police department and introducing your child to the police department. There is a form that you can fill out. If you ever have to call the police for any reason to come to your home, they can know that, okay, it'll come up on their screen in their car that there's someone there with a disability. It may not say what the disability is, but it makes them aware that there's someone there. I know a lot of people tell me we're far past that. And yes, we do have officers who don't want to go by the rules, and it's unfortunate and it's horrible, but it's also necessary that we educate ourselves, educate our children as much as possible, and do what we can to educate law enforcement, because Garfield wanted this training. They called us and asked if there was training. So there are some police departments who want the training. And so it is available, and we are still training officers. We're just trying to find a different route now to do it.
Well, let me know so that you can cross-train us down here in Central Ohio.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, it's almost 10 after the hour. Are there any other questions? I'm sure if you have any questions, you can either email us at the Center for Disability Empowerment, or you can contact Selena Miller. Selena, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and sharing your journey, which is so important. It doesn't happen overnight, and usually it's through tears, joy, and frustration, but it's worth it when you look back. I always think, my brother had DD, severe disabilities. He never spoke a word in his life, but his life spoke volumes and continues to do so. And I'm more blessed on the journey of the people that I meet, like yourself and several of the other ladies that I've met here in this journey. So thank you so much for your time. God bless all of you who joined us on this call. And hopefully, we have recorded this, and we will get it edited and put it out there so that you can share this with people that you think need to hear this. And hopefully, if this is something that you have a passion for to do in your local neighborhood, oh, do it. It's so worth it. And
Yes.
a lot of us out there who are advocates who took those baby steps, and sometimes we say, oh, why did we do this? But it is so worth the journey. So thank you so much for your time, and you take care of yourselves.
You too. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.